Hey everyone, another Off the Top Rope coming at you here. So Survivor Series is this weekend. I'll have a full preview of the actual matches and how I think they go. But I want to do something real quick here. So we've obviously got the two War Games matches, men's and women's. Bayley, a late substitute for Jade Cargill. It seems like that's kind of a serious situation to keep your eye on. Some reports that she has a neck issue that could be a couple months or it could be a whole year. We'll see how that goes. But Bayley is in on the babyface side for the women's War Games match, and then obviously CM Punk. The big headline news that he's going to be joining the OG Bloodline against Solo Sikoa's Timu Bloodline at War Games. So you've got the two War Games matches, and then you've got three other matches. It's a 5-match Triple H pay-per-view. A lot of people love to bag on that. I would rather have shows structured like this, balance them out, have a different variety of stories throughout the show rather than jam 12 matches into 5.5 hours like Tony Khan does on AEW. But there is a little bit of controversy about the matches that are going to be on this Survivor Series show. So obviously, world title. It's going to be Damian Priest versus Gunther for the world title. A rematch from SummerSlam without shenanigans. The build has been very interesting. They've made Gunther look vulnerable, which, I mean, depending on how you feel about Gunther, I think it's actually nice to show a different side and, present some other dominant characters so they have an actual shot at and some believability that they might be able to knock off a Gunther. So I kind of am fine with the way that they've handled this, and Damian Priest, yeah, you may not like him because he's a little bit older and the build has been kind of especially with the break off from the Judgment Day has been kind of sloppy. He's still a great worker and he's really done a lot to elevate himself this year. I think he's earned the opportunity again to be in a world championship match. I don't think he'll win. I'll talk about why and what the circumstances of how this could look. But it's nonetheless very interesting. And then you've got the two mid-card championships getting onto this show. Triple threat match. Braun Breaker defending against Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus, which I think is going to be awesome. Honestly, I'm really excited. Obviously, the War Games matches are the real selling point of this show. But this honestly has a chance to steal the damn show. Sheamus has no pun intended. He's been put on banger after banger. Braun Breaker's been awesome and good for Kaiser, man. Some people he may not be everybody's cup of tea, but he's really done a lot to separate himself from Gunther as his own guy. So I think that's going to be awesome. And then kind of thrown in at the last minute, LA Knight is going to defend the United States title against Shinsuke Nakamura. And for some reason, a lot of people have an issue with that. Guys, weren't y'all mad when LA Knight, after winning the United States Championship, wasn't able to get on premium live events? And then he gets on Crown Jewel. He now gets on Survivor Series. What's the problem? I think I know what it is. So the problem is Cody Rhodes is not on this show. And this is now the third straight PLE that Cody Rhodes is not going to defend his Undisputed Championship. And I know some of the Bloodline truthers are going to be like, oh man, everybody was coming after Roman Reigns when he wouldn't defend the championship on the main premium live events. Guys, that was different. Roman was in the midst of a 4-year title run. That was way different than this. Cody is in the midst of a really intriguing story with Kevin Owens, and they announced, hey, that's going to be on Saturday night's main event. And you know what? If they weren't going to do it at Survivor Series, I'm totally fine with them doing it at Saturday night's main event. You've got to make Saturday night's main event as big of a show as you possibly can. I just question, here's what I think will happen. I think there's no way in hell that Cody Rhodes is not going to be on this show. So I would imagine that there's going to be some type of a disruption involving Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. They've been playing this up, and this whole thing where Kevin's not welcome, he's kind of going rogue against the company. I think there's going to be something that plays into, and who knows, maybe it plays into the men's War Games match, because there's also the Seth Rollins element of this. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So I don't get why people are so mad that LA Knight's getting on the show and Cody Rhodes is not, because here's the other thing that you got to think about. And this feeds into like what a lot of people had an issue with Full Gear, because I know a lot of people in the community don't like JD from New York. He can be kind of volatile with some of his takes, but he's always kept it real, and I respect him for that. I may not like some of the ideas and some of the things that he pushes out there, but he's always kept it real, especially when it comes to AEW. And his problem, and I kind of had an issue with this too, just from like, watching bits and pieces of the show over the last couple days. There's a lot that's too similar within AEW. Like Ricochet and Takeshita is a very similar style match to Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. You have so many people that do the same thing, and then you don't have very many extended breaks in between these matches, and you have 10 of these matches going nonstop with no break. Fans are going to get tired, and it sounded like a funeral in there like half the time. It was dead. It was dead. So you have different varieties of matches on this show. You have the 2 War Games matches, which are going to take a ton of time and put a lot of energy into those. So if you put Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens on this show, the emotional level, it's going to be really hard to like have the crowd be up energy wise. I understand that you may need to stack the show, but let's be real. Like I said, this isn't WrestleMania. This isn't SummerSlam. It's Survivor Series. It's in a little bit of a resurgence, but the story of this show is those War Games matches. So I don't have an issue. I think it's nice that you're going to have the Intercontinental title and the U.S. title are going to have a stage to themselves here. It'll be interesting to see how they book the new Shinsuke character against LA Knight. This is his first real, true challenge of his title reign. And then Braun Breaker, like there's some doubt that Braun Breaker may lose the title again. And maybe Sheamus finally gets his big moment and finally gets the Intercontinental title. And that's going to be a huge work rate match. LA Knight and Shinsuke will be a true balance of styles. LA both of them very charismatic. LA's not as much of a technical guy, and you go against a big striker in Shinsuke, so that's interesting. And then the world title match, we saw it at SummerSlam between Gunther and Damian Priest. It was great, and now you're showing this new vulnerable side of Gunther to kind of enhance his character. I'm really intrigued to see what the show is like. I think a lot of people are kind of misreading how this thing is getting handled. I think it's the right way to approach this. You don't need to force matches down the way. A lot of emotional investment, I think, can sometimes be too much. And that's why I like the way Triple H is kind of structuring these shows, is when you have multiple PLEs, and they've had multiple PLEs this month. And yes, Crown Jewel was kind of thrown away with a couple of nonsensical matches, and you can already see within storyline, Nia Jax and Liv are already getting along, and they were literally fighting each other 3 weeks ago, so that makes a ton of sense. But that's kind of like the Saudi Arabian involvement of this whole thing. But when you have multiple shows like this throughout the course of a year, you don't need to jam every single match conceivably possible. You can let these things marinate, let them cook, and then get to a different show. And with a really big-time television special, even though it's not going to be a premium live event, they might as well treat it like it in Saturday night's main event. I like the fact that they're going to make that feel big and feel special with a world title match, an undisputed title match between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. But we'll see. I would be really surprised if Cody and Kevin Owens are not involved in this show in some capacity with a segment of some form or fashion. So that's my take on that. We'll obviously have a full Survivor Series preview later in the week, reaction to the show as well. It's going to be really great to see this show. It's really been on a resurgence. I always loved the traditional Survivor Series match, but bringing War Games into this one of the longest running premium live events, pay-per-views in WWE history, I think has really re-energized this event, which is a Thanksgiving tradition. So yeah, we'll have a lot of reaction to that throughout the week. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button below in this video, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.